Oh, gotta have your clicker handy. Every time you screw up, you make a click, and then you know where to stop and look. It makes it a little faster in the editing. In Bloom on Jekyll, In Bloom on Jekyll, Chapter 1, November 2018. The ceremony was almost over, but Tally wasn't sure they were going to get through the wedding vows before the sky opened. The clouds had been getting blacker by the second for the last 20 minutes, and the photographers were giving the wedding planning team worried looks. The weather was rolling in from behind the ceremony, which meant that when the rain started, everybody would be running into it to get to their cars. Half of the guests were driving open golf carts. It wouldn't be pretty. Talia tried several times to get the bride and groom to agree to move their wedding to an indoor location. She'd had a backup plan. She always had a backup plan for inclement weather. And when she saw the forecast on the Wednesday before Josh and Rachel's wedding, she didn't play games. She immediately put Plan B into motion and joked with her new assistant, Kayla, that she was going to get her first crash course in wedding damage control. But that wasn't what happened. When the bride and groom arrived on Jekyll, Tally and Kayla sat down with them at the beach house they'd rented and reviewed their wedding weekend schedule. Then Tally also gave them an alternate schedule to pre-approve for inclement weather, just in case it was needed. Josh and Rachel weren't having any of it and refused to even discuss the possibility their wedding wouldn't be held on the famous Driftwood Beach, where so many scenes from The Walking Dead had been filmed. Josh and Rachel weren't having any of it and refused to even discuss the possibility their wedding wouldn't be held on the famous Driftwood Beach, where so many scenes from The Walking Dead had been filmed. Seriously. Tally was just glad the ceremony didn't have a zombie theme because the undead had been alluded to in several of the items in the couple's welcome bags. The wedding itself was an unusual one for the wedding planner because it was the first time Tally had encountered the Noahide religion. The groom, who was heading up the wedding planning because his bride was busy studying to take the bar exam a few weeks after their big day, had explained Noahide to Tally as Jewish light. It focused more on the Noah part of the Old Testament, and there were a number of rainbows featured in their decor. The prep list had given Kayla the worst case of the giggles, but they were completely justified. It was the weird stuff like this that Tally loved. It kept her job interesting. It was the first time in her career that she'd actually gotten to use those crazy-looking rainbow roses in a wedding decor, and the clients weren't even gay. Tally tried to get the bride and groom to see reason because the forecast was calling for a 90% chance of rain every day of their wedding week. Tally tried to get the bride and groom to see reason because the forecast was calling for a 90% chance of rain every day their wedding week. She pointed out to her clients that even if their wedding guests didn't melt, they had chosen a rather unusual decor for their huppah that involved handmade paper flowers in rainbow chains that Rachel and her bridesmaids had created at her bridal shower. She pointed out to her clients that even if their wedding guests didn't melt, they had chosen a rather unusual decor for their huppah that involved handmade paper flowers in rainbow chains that Rachel and her bridesmaids had created at her bridal shower. Also, the ketubah, a traditional Hebrew marriage license, was a hand-painted watercolor that had been a very expensive wedding gift from the groom's grandmother. If it got wet, it would be ruined. Josh and Rachel sat politely. Josh and Rachel sat politely and listened to all of Tally's concerns, and they agreed to discuss it again on the morning of the wedding. But by and large, the couple weren't worried about the weather and didn't care what it did. If it rains, God sent us that rain, and he will send us a rainbow too, Rachel told her wedding planners. Kayla looked over at Tally to see what she would do with that one, and Tally had to look away so she didn't crack up. Okay, so instead of putting together Plan B, you'd rather I figure out how to make Plan A work no matter what. I don't suppose you'll let us set up a tent? Tally asked. Josh laughed at her. Haven't we been over this? We have, but you hired me to give you good advice and plan a perfect wedding. And no matter what God has planned for your life, Mother Nature is not cooperating this weekend. I don't want you to regret your decision when all of your guests are soaking wet and cold at your reception, Tally warned. Are you sure you don't want me to find ponchos that we can hand out to guests? Tally warned. Are you sure you don't want me to find ponchos that we can hand out to the guests? That's enough.